Well, John and Jamil are back with me, along with Bishop Garrison, Senior Fellow and Adjunct Professor at George Mason Law School's National Security Institute. Glad to have you here, Bishop. Thank you. I'm going to begin with you, John, on this, because you've got some new reporting on Matthew Livelsberger. Why would he have done this?
Well, this is the thing that Kevin McMahill, the sheriff in Las Vegas, and Spencer Evans, the special agent in charge of that office, and their teams have been poring over, which is get into the phones, get into the computers, get into the house. Are there communications with radical groups or extremists, right-wing extremists, foreign extremists, left-wing extremists? And that's what they're not finding. Are there connections or communications or associations with the New Orleans suspect who blew up, who had IEDs and did the ramming attack there? That's what they're not finding. What they are starting to see, though, are personal issues in his life, things going on in his family life that were problems for him, things going on in his Army life as a Special Forces Green Beret counterterrorism, counterinsurgency specialist, signs of depression, signs of sadness about long deployments and being away, talk about PTSD, about the amount of violence that they're exposed to, the killing, collateral damage of non-combatants, civilians who were killed. These are things that affect a lot of special operators. So they are, as they're looking for connections between the New Orleans attack and this explosion in Las Vegas, what we're starting to see is the cases drifting apart instead of together. This could have been a organized suicide after a series of life-depressing stressors and a final stressor that might have broken the camel's back, where he wanted to go out literally with a bang in a symbolic location. What does that mean, Laura? Is he trying to say these are the problems that America's most elite soldiers are facing, and I want the new president to know about it? It's a bizarre way to deliver a message, and maybe that's a reach. But it's what they're looking at now, along with many other things. And, they're keeping an open mind because you don't know where the case is going to go.
We don't know, Bishop. We don't know what the connections, if there are any. We do know that there are some red flag, maybe coincidences, but whether they will turn out to anything, I don't know. But we do know this is somebody who is a Green Beret. Active duty, by the way. He had been awarded multiple medals. The ATF says the, quote, level of sophistication is not what you'd expect from someone who has all of these sort of accolades and training. But tell me, I'm picking your brain here. What does it suggest to you that this correlation between all of his training and the way this all went down?
Well, first and foremost, my heart goes out to the communities here, both New Orleans and with Las Vegas, because this creates so much tension, so much trauma for those individuals that are just trying to live their lives. Given that we know that he was Master Sergeant active duty with Special Forces, the operations tempo over the course of the last 20 years, when you talk about GWAT, when you talk about the global war on terrorism, has just been so high for these individuals, so much stress. As I myself served 2 tours in Iraq, I served with a great many Special Forces officers enlisted. I know just the pressures that they're going through, both while they're actively in combat and then back at home. When you come back and you have some of these added stressors that John kind of alluded to. The first things first, we need more information. We need to understand a little bit better about what was going on in his life, what might have driven him to this type of activity.
Why he was on leave.
Why he was on leave, why the Trump Tower, why there's so many different ways that he could have gone about doing this. They could have made a bigger statement. They could have made more destruction. They could have made less. He could have written an email, could have written a letter, or he could have had a more powerful explosive given his skill set. So we just don't know. And there are too many folks that are taking the threads of information we do have and going online and looking for some type of coordination or some type of connection between the two events that we've seen and everything else. And it's just going to create more misinformation, disinformation, and more terror. So we just need to kind of take a breath, let law enforcement do what they need to do, and we need to understand better about his life and what was going on. But knowing the amount of stress and pressures that we have these soldiers under, Special Forces operators, we should understand a bit more of what we can do to help that community and support them properly.
I certainly understand. I'm not having served, but I can appreciate the stressors. It's one thing to talk about what happened in Las Vegas versus what's happening in New Orleans and the loss of lives, other people who were killed as a result of it. But when you look at the psychology and you think about ways in which law enforcement is trying to investigate with an eye towards deterrence, what sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard, Laura, because you've got to figure out how do you identify these people. One, how do you identify them ahead of time? To Bishop's point, how do you get them the help they need before they turn into a terrorist in the case of Shamsuddin Jabbar, where he's becoming radicalized, whether it's on the internet or elsewhere? How do you solve in the case of Matthew Levelsberger, where he's going and putting himself in a truck and blowing it up with campfire gas and fireworks, right? How do you get ahead of that? How do you prevent that from happening? How do you prevent the radicalization and the activity that might take lives of others? These are very hard things. And then how do you harden our society against those things? How do you collect the right kind of intelligence? How do you identify lone wolf terrorists? We have an authority for lone wolf surveillance that's expired 4 years ago because Congress didn't act on it. We have 702 authorities, surveillance of foreigners located overseas, that's set to expire once again just in a few months. Congress may not reauthorize it. These are real challenges. Taking those tools off the table for our law enforcement, our military and intelligence communities is exactly the wrong thing to do. Congress is going to have a chance to deal with that and other issues going forward.
A lot of the curiosity you both speak of, what to do next, is the likely result of terror, right? It makes people wonder and question and look at each other very differently, and of course look to Congress and other agencies to know what they can do about it. Gentlemen, thank you all so much.